All right, let's jump right into this explainer of Office Drama Stories, episode 96. Today, we're unraveling a genuinely fascinating corporate mystery. We're talking toxic office politics, executive cover-ups, and the absolute undeniable power of a record-first culture. Now, if you've been following the overarching storyline here, you know the company just recently rolled out the memory wall and the memory charter, basically trying to enforce some much-needed accountability. But as we're about to see, institutional memory doesn't just magically happen just because you slap a new policy on the wall, right? It gets tested. And the crazy part is, it gets tested by the things that look completely harmlessly boring.
So we start off with this incredible, paradoxical hook. We're dealing with a seemingly innocent, super positive HR document. It's just an anonymous praise note sent through the standard culture recognition form. On the surface, it's exactly the kind of fluffy, feel-good document you want to see circulating in an office. But in reality, it's acting as a desperate distress signal. The real danger in this workplace isn't some cartoon villain storming into a boardroom. It's a document so administrative, so minor, and honestly so boring that absolutely nobody wants to question it.
Which brings us to part 1, the dangerous, boring object.
To kick off our forensic investigation here, picture the company right after those public transparency initiatives were established. This is a super crucial phase, because this is exactly when everyone in the office thought the environment was finally safe, you know? They actually believed the company had learned to choose the hard record over the loud noise. But, well, old habits don't just vanish overnight, they adapt. They try to sneak back in through quiet workflow changes and highly polished excuses. And this perfectly illustrates how toxic corporate systems really operate. The culture office comes in using this soft, comforting language, tossing around words like alignment, healing, and business continuity. They argue, hey, this is positive feedback. We shouldn't be investigating a compliment. It's a culture reset. But Maya Carter? She sees right through it. She recognizes the pattern immediately and spots a coded warning hiding inside this mundane little object. Toxic systems constantly use these polished official explanations as a shield to mask reality, totally banking on the fact that no one is going to look closely at something that seems so nice.
So, how do you fight that? Let's move into part 2, reading the fine print.
Because knowing something is wrong just isn't enough. You actually have to prove it. And Maya's allies begin to completely dismantle this fake corporate facade by looking exactly where they're told not to. They don't panic, they don't start shouting, they just sit down and start reading the fine print. And I want you to notice how pressure in a toxic office rarely looks like a direct, aggressive attack. It arrives so softly. It comes dressed up as career advice, or concern for your stability, or just being mature. Like when Transformation Officer Adrian Vale drops this little line, basically suggesting that good, mature leaders know when to just stop asking questions. It's an incredibly subtle way to try and erase the issue. But Maya absolutely shuts it down. She fires back, pointing out that the truth isn't what causes the damage. Hiding the truth is the actual damage.
Okay, this is where it gets really good. We get to watch these three allies progressively peel back the layers of this thing, exposing the truth step by step. First, you have Sofia, the new operations coordinator. Now, she hasn't been there long enough to learn which questions the old culture considers inconvenient. So she just does her job and checks the routing notes and owner fields. Then there's Nina, the executive assistant. She knows that invisible background work, stuff like booking rooms and printing drafts, always leaves a foreground record somewhere. And finally, Jordan, the IT audit specialist, just goes right in and pulls the raw system logs. Working together, they prove without a shadow of a doubt that invisible background work always leaves a trail, if you're willing to look for it.
Now that they have the data, we hit part 3, assembling the proof map.
Maya takes all this chaotic raw data and organizes it into something completely undeniable. She practically maps it out on a clear wall. She isn't running around chasing people down for confessions. She's strictly following the systems. By tracking these super specific elements, she proves that you really don't need the loudest voice in the room. People are always going to deny things, and systems might hesitate. But when you put the actual records in order, they start speaking loud and clear before anyone even opens their mouth. She connects the object, the exact timestamp, who actually benefited from it, and those suspiciously missing approval signatures. It creates a clean, undeniable, straight line from the action right to the owner.
And Jordan's IT audit really drives this home. It shows us that getting to the truth isn't some cinematic hacker magic, right? There's no dramatic green code raining down a black screen. It's just a sequence of boring, undeniable administrative facts. The background tasks are what people try to treat as invisible. But the system reality, the fact that somebody actually had to physically log in, change a specific field, approve a route, and then directly benefit from it, that completely shatters the culture office's fairy tale narrative that this was just a harmless little note.
Which forces management's hand, bringing us to part 4, the formal review theater.
So the evidence is mounting, and the executives are finally forced into a formal review meeting. But of course, instead of actual accountability, the whole thing quickly devolves into this polite performance art. Everyone's just playing a role. They're trying to soften their verbs, rename their bad choices, and heavily stress over the optics of it all. The executives are desperately trying to drag the conversation away from the hard facts and into the realm of feelings, because, let's be honest, feelings are where the old toxic culture hides best. But then, Aisha Morgan drops this one room-shrinking question that pulls everyone directly back to the reality of the record. She asks, who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Bam! It forces the entire room to stop obsessing over the mood of the investigation and start looking at the actual names attached to the data.
And then, we get the absolute jaw-dropping reveal. As Maya is laying out the proof right next to the official explanation, literally going page by page, excuse by excuse, Nina notices something wild about the anonymous praise note itself. It wasn't just some generic positive feedback. If you take the first letter of each sentence, it actually spells out a specific room name and a time. It was a literal, hidden map left behind by a frightened witness just desperately begging for someone patient enough to actually read it. I mean, literal chills, right?
Finding that code is incredible, but it's what they do next that matters in Part 5, repairing the system.
Discovering that hidden message is a thrilling moment, for sure. But the real takeaway for us is Maya and the team's response. Exposing the truth in one dramatic meeting just isn't enough for them. They completely refuse to accept some quiet, private fix because that would just make the executives comfortable while leaving all the future employees totally exposed. Instead, Maya goes and builds this safe signal pathway. She ensures the lesson actually outlives the meeting. Because a truly repaired workplace isn't some magical land without conflict, it's a place where conflict is forced to leave a record, a place where employees can safely flag a danger without having to invent elaborate secret agent codes inside HR recognition forms. They literally write the correction right into the company's DNA.
This line right here just beautifully captures the whole point. It explains exactly why a record-first culture is your absolute best defense against executive theater and corporate cover-ups. Systems don't yell, timestamps don't argue with you. They just sit there quietly waiting for someone like Maya, Sofia, or Nina to come along, pay attention, and read them.
So wrapping up this explainer, here's the big thought to walk away with. A safe workplace is simply one where the truth no longer needs anyone's permission to appear. Maya proved that the truth can absolutely survive when it's documented. But what happens when the people in power purposely ensure there is no written record to begin with? That perfectly sets the stage for our next investigation. We're going to dive into the infamous leadership retreat that mysteriously had no minutes taken. You are not going to want to miss that one. I'll see you then.